I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig. Welcome to my new series called The Pivot. We are so excited to bring you deeper conversations with people who've made really impactful changes in their lives. We're going to find out how they do it and how you can also learn from their experience. We're thrilled to be partnering with Signal Relief, a pain patch reliever. I've used it and had tremendous success. We're really excited to have you join us and learn more about how to make the important pivots in your life. Welcome to The Pivot. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig. We want to thank our sponsors at Signal Relief. Today we have Montel Williams. Many of you know him for his longtime show, The Montel Williams Show. He's here to talk about his latest book that he co-authored called The Sailing of the Intrepid, which he wrote with David Fisher. Come join our conversation. I know you'll find it interesting. Montel, welcome to The Pivot. I am so happy that you saved time for us today, and I'm so excited to talk about the new project, a book that you just came out with. And I just want to say for the audience, Montel and I go way back to his talk show days. In fact, his producer was the first person to find me and put me on national TV. So I'm forever grateful to the Montel show and to Montel for being such a great mentor during that time.
You were always such a great guest. You were always such a great guest, Bobby.
Thank you so much. So we're here to really talk about you and the various pivots you've made and this new book that came out called The Sailing of the Intrepid, which you co-wrote with David Fisher. I need to tell you something. So I never really read wartime history. I usually like psychology books, and I started reading, and it is a page turner and so fabulous. I was hooked immediately.
Thank you so much. One of the things I've heard back from almost everybody who's reviewed it, and it's been out now for almost 2.5 weeks. You know, we jumped to number one on Amazon in 3 different categories. We were number one for World War II history, number one for Vietnam history, and number one for naval history. So I'm really, really very, very proud of that. And hopefully we'll keep moving up. I was blessed to be able to co-write with David Fisher, who's an author who's done over 100 books. 30 plus have been bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. He's had several books optioned for movies. David reached out to me and said, do you know anything about the story of the Intrepid? And of course I did, because I've probably been on the Intrepid 15, 20 times in the last 20 years for various events. And I actually did know the history of the Intrepid because I'm part of what's called the Fisher House Board. The Fisher family is the reason why the Intrepid sits along the side of the West Side Highway. Zachary Fisher, who is Ken Fisher's father, Ken being the president of Fisher House and also the president of the Intrepid Foundation. His uncle literally bought the ship. It was about to be dismantled and turned into scrap. He bought it, went to Mayor Koch. He said, I got this idea for this great airspace land museum. I'd love to be able to put this ship right along the West Side Highway. And they said, yes, that looks like a good area because it needs regentrification. And Zachary did it. He started the process, reached out to all of the various entities that have helped him turn it into the great museum that it is today.
Well, I have not been there, but I want to go there after reading your book. And I think what's so interesting, first of all, the Intrepid almost seemed like its own character in the book because, and this is the 4th generation, correct, of the Intrepid?
It's the 4th generation of the name, and there will be a 5th generation name. As a matter of fact, normally names get retired. They were going to retire this name, but Secretary Del Toro decided to put it back in the mix before he left office. So it's going to be on a 5th ship, this time coming around a destroyer. The name Intrepid has such a storied history. And so as you read the book, one of the things I really enjoyed about this is that as we put it together, and over a 200-year period of time, you see how this ship really survived what is almost unsurvivable. It's a part of Americana that everybody needs to understand and realize how valued this ship has been to us as a nation. But it also kind of says some things about today.
When I was reading through, I was kind of struck by the charismatic captain back in the day in the U.S. early history, and just how the Intrepid has influenced the way the Navy, I hope I'm saying this right, really thinks about war and strategizing and what it stands for.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we talk about the first ship was a catch, the second ship was like basically a floating torpedo. The third ship was a training ship, and then the fourth ship was the Intrepid that was commissioned back in 1943. When it was commissioned and set sail, it was the largest aircraft carrier of its class, which was Essex class carriers, and the fourth one that was built, the fourth aircraft carrier of this type that was built. But literally, at a time when the world didn't accept the fact that you could land an airplane on a postage stamp in the middle of the ocean, most of the war, most of the world, the Germans at the time, the French, everybody, no one actually thought an aircraft carrier would be of any value. So the book kind of weaves a little bit of history together with some stories and some characters. Almost every person who's interviewed me said that this book reads like a cinematic novel, and we're hoping that we get it turned into. Yeah.
It does. And what I learned, because I don't know really that much or anything about this area, I was so struck by the resiliency of these captains and how they were brave and really, thought in a very unique problem-solving way in order to succeed. And you talk about in the book, just like the captain handling the Intrepid after the rudder was ruined and the creativity that went into that plan.
That was absolutely insane. I mean, that's really the area that we cover in the book. The Intrepid was put into service and went into the Pacific Fleet in 1944, and literally had an incredible mission against then the Marshall Islands, Kwajalein specifically, and wreaked extreme havoc on the Japanese there. Then went on to island that was called Truk, where they actually destroyed almost the largest tonnage of Japanese warplanes and ships of any battle in the war. Leaving Truk, the ship was leaving at night, and just by luck, and I say it's luck on the parts of the Japanese, they were able to find it by following the trail of its wake left in the ocean. And one Japanese plane fired a torpedo that crammed in and hit the rudder of the Intrepid and basically pinned it about 45 degrees to then port. And that 45-degree port made it just continuously turn erratically to the left. It was unsteerable. And so, the military had a choice. So the Navy had a choice: either sink it, scuttle it, or figure out how we're going to protect it to get it all the way back 3,000 miles plus back to Hawaii. They were able to scrape together enough canvas to sew together a 300 square foot sail and put it on the front of the ship so that it would catch the wind in a way that it would counterbalance what was going on with the rudder. And what was so crazy about it is that this ship, again, it's an aircraft carrier, had one person on the ship who had a rating of sailmaker. But what that job really was for this ship was sew body bags, not to sew sails.
Oh my gosh.
So he had to recruit other people on board the ship, pull together some body bags, some hatch covers, other things, sew together this huge sail, put it on the front of the ship, and it actually worked. And guess what? They were able to drive the ship back 3,000 miles to Pearl Harbor, where it was then repaired lightly, sent up to San Francisco, where it went into dry dock. When it was pulling into San Francisco Bay, it almost hit the Golden Gate Bridge because it lost steering again. It went back into service, got struck by 2 kamikazes. It was one of the first ships to get struck by a kamikaze in World War II. Went back into the dry docks, repaired, went back into service, struck 3 more times by kamikazes. Went back into dry dock, came back into service, helped complete World War II, went on to serve during Vietnam, went on to serve as the space recovery ship for NASA before it was set to be retired and then turned into scrap metal. And that's when Zachary Fisher stepped in and said, no, 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 no.
He saved the boat. It definitely sounds like this boat is just the symbol of resiliency and surviving. What got you to want to share this information in the book that you've put out?
The book took almost a year to write, about 9 months. And during the entire time, I kept, for myself and even David, we kept focusing on the fact that, if you look at the ship as kind of like, a small microcosm of America. It takes teamwork to accomplish anything. America, whether we like it or not, no matter what's going on at any given time in this country, we are a team. The reason why we are the United States of America is because we've got through all of our difficulties as a team. It's going to take a team to get us through to the future. I wanted to emphasize that, and I think this book does a really good job of doing that.
I'm so glad that you did, because you're absolutely right. And that's the takeaway, that we need each other and we need to work together. It's so easy to be divided, but I think what the Intrepid shows through its history, it's not about what's easy. It's about being creative and how do we come together to get the job done right.
And not giving up. Period.
Yes.
You do not give up. You don't just say, well, I don't like these people, so let's just give up. There was one young junior officer right after the ship got struck by the torpedo, was running through the hallway saying, abandon ship, abandon ship, abandon ship. And they shut him down because they were not going to abandon the ship. We were going to keep the ship fighting as best we could. And, this would have been a prize for Tojo. It would have been a prize for the Japanese Navy and Air Force to have been able to sink this. We didn't want to give them that satisfaction. And they didn't give them that satisfaction.
When I hear about the Intrepid, it's not surprising that you chose to write about this topic, because you are somebody that has gone through so many transitions and pivots in your own life. And I don't know if people know how the military has really driven your career and ideology.
It's the same thought. You don't give up. I'm not going to give up. And I will define the person I am, not anybody else. And that's what I've done my entire career and my entire life. I got diagnosed with MS. I could have, rolled into a corner and given up. I'm not giving up. I had a major stroke 7 years ago. I'm not giving up. I, stopped my show. I'm not giving up. I've been working on other shows, working on other projects. I'm not going to give up. I mean, if we just think about that, and for your listeners, I mean, if you, everybody goes through tough times. There's tough times right now in America. We can roll up and go into a corner and cry, or we can get out of that corner and say, I'm not giving up. I'm going to do what I have to do to keep moving forward.
And you've always used your career to educate and encourage. Like when you were diagnosed with MS, you were one of the first people to talk about medicinal marijuana and how it could be helpful. And I don't know that really we had heard of that before. I know I hadn't, and I was semi in the field. That was something you really brought to the attention of the public.
Right now, we are in trouble because the particular leadership that's in place right now wants to try to get Congress to turn back the laws and take away medical cannabis, which is so ignorant, because cannabis has been studied worldwide, and there are more written, published, peer-reviewed documents on cannabis than there is any other single drug in the world. There's well over 35,000 peer-reviewed published documents in the world. Over 160 countries pulled out of a 1963 treaty that stopped inter-country commerce on hemp and on cannabis, because we recognize that, unfortunately, having something that has been recognized as a medicine for over 3,000 years, in less than 100 years, got taken off the table, and it was really only taken off the table for racist reasons. It had nothing to do with its medicinal properties. And now, most recently, there has been some evidence that has been found. I think it was in Australia. And when I come back to you and we talk about it, I'll have every bit of information that you need. But there's data out there right now that cannabis may be one of the first lines of defense against pancreatic cancer. This is a plant that has probably over 500 constituent parts. All of them have different medicinal purposes of some sort. And most people only know of cannabis because they think it gets you high. Now, throw that away. Cannabis has something in it called CBG, CBD, CBDA, CBDV, CBGA, CBDG. There's so many different cannabinoids, all of which have a response inside of the human body. And guess what? Our bodies have a secondary sympathetic nervous system is called the endocannabinoid system. Whereas if you had never used cannabis in your life, I can still detect cannabinoids in your body because you create something called endocannabinoids. And we know that those are chemicals in our bodies that help to keep our cells in homeostasis. We know this for a fact.
Did you go to medical school when I wasn't looking, Montel?
No, I wish I had. But right now, medical schools all over the world are starting to teach the endocannabinoid system and teaching. We have receptors in our body. All mammals have receptors in their bodies that are there specifically to be agonized by cannabinoids in that plant. So, and that's the reason why it's been featured in every cornucopia of medicine for the last 3,000 years since cornucopias were started to be written.
Now, you mentioned something really interesting, Montel, that there was racism as a piece of it being outlawed. I mean, can you tell me more?
Without a doubt, that if you go way back to the beginning of the propaganda against marijuana, we tried to criminalize it because they tried to say, well, first off, marijuana is a racist term. Marijuana was named after what was supposedly Mexican prostitutes who brought that with them. Marijuana was all over, not just America, not only Central America, all over the world, the Golden Triangle, Africa. People don't know that the entire Napoleonic War was fought because of marijuana, of hemp.
I did not know that. But more specifically, Montel, how has it helped you personally with your own struggles with MS?
We know that there are specific cannabinoids that help with inflammation and that also help with, again, I'll go back to using the term cellular homeostasis. This is what actually goes into our cells. There are certain cannabinoids that help to reset the cells at the mitochondrial level that help to void us or help us void some of the caustic things that are in our cells. That is what I think has been helping me. But for me personally, I suffered from extreme neuropathic pain that cannabis helped with because it was reducing the inflammation inside, helping me to reduce the level of pain that I've had. It also helped with what's called spasticity. You know, I have very, very spastic legs. I had extreme night tremors. If I don't use cannabis at night, I have those same tremors come back. It's just that simple. So I use it. And there are people, we have found in the last 20 years with research being done all over the planet that cannabis has effect on various forms of cancer and has extreme effect on a lot of gut illness, a lot of Crohn's disease and those kinds of variants of Crohn's. It has had effect on people who've had intestinal cancer. It's had effect on people who have pancreatic cancer. We know this is not just me talking. All the things I'm saying right now, anybody saying, oh, Montel's full of it. He's so full of it. Look it up yourself. Google it yourself. Find out.
And we're also going to have people look at a website for you because in addition to being very outspoken about cannabis, you also are doing military makeovers that really your goal is to make military families to appreciate their service and to give back to them.
I have a show that's on every Friday morning on Lifetime that's called Military Makeover with Montel, where we literally pick a veteran family and we go in a 10-day period of time and basically redo their houses from the ground up. We do everything from the yards, the floors, the bathrooms, the kitchens, you name it. We bring in all new HVAC. We bring in, new communications equipment. We do their home. We turn their house into a forever home. We've done 43 houses to date, and we're about to do our 44th house next month.
You are an inspiration. How you're like the, what do they call it? The energizing bunny. You just keep going and going, but it's all purposeful and it's really valuable. What do you see as the major pivot in your life and the next chapter for you?
The most recent pivot was when I had a stroke, because I had a type of stroke that normally kills 50% of people who have it. As a matter of fact, when I had my stroke, John Singleton, director John Singleton, had the same stroke and he didn't make it. Luke Perry had the same type of stroke. He didn't make it. But for the grace of God, the blood in my brain did not miss my brainstem by 1/100 of an inch. Had it hit my brainstem, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So that gave me more purpose in life. That made me understand that, though I might be in the last quarter, it's a very weird way to say it, but, I can always score a touchdown. in the last second of the game. I can always kick a field goal in the last second of the game.
You're always impressive, and your fans and I love you so much for all the work that you're doing and how inspirational you are and how you spread really valuable, well-researched information. So we are just lucky to have you still talking and passionate and doing what you do best.
I thank you so much, Bobby. And again, if you ever want me to come back to talk cannabis, let's do it, girlfriend.
Always. I always want you back. Absolutely. You got yourself a deal.
Sure. I'll do it in a heartbeat because we need help. People out there need to know there's some legislative changes coming that might shut down cannabis over the entire country, which is really just sick.
We'll have you back.